Hi guys, hope everyone's well. I just thought I'd put a video together over the last few days. I see the tensions really growing across the world, especially now that I see all the lockdowns hitting Australia, and I can see there's going to be a bit of a roller coaster ride for people. It's very concerning what's going to be coming. Not just there, but across the world as well. I can see from my observations. Some people might be interested in what I'm going to say. Most people probably don't give a shit because they're all brainwashed. But I think it's time to talk about this. There's a lot of people confused, messed up, lots of information on the net, lots of more disinformation than good. So I thought I'd have a bit of a chat. For example, I came into Budapest, such a hot day, about 34, 35 degrees, and I thought I'd come in to get some air conditioning. And I picked this place that's Puder or something like that it's called. Puder. Bar Sinhas. So it's an interesting location. I'll show you the interior. It's got old furniture, bit Art Deco-y kind of place, but anyway, thought I'd come into some aircon because it's really hot. So in Australia I can see we already went through all these lockdowns you guys have gone through. Now and also the propaganda about the vaccinations. The media is so sickening to watch. I actually don't watch it anymore because I get worked up. For example, on Wednesday I had to come into Budapest and catch up with a friend. While I was walking on the street, this street actually, called Radoi Utsa, I saw the two local city council patrol officers walking along the road, and they had stopped at this guitarist guy playing music to a group of about 15, 20 people, probably about like that, at a long table, and they wanted to fine him for playing in public, and anyway, for me that was like the last straw. A few times I have exploded at ticket offices trying to make money out of tourists, but I just couldn't believe it. So many friends of mine who are musicians have gone out of work. Many are really stressed. A lot of small businesses are closed, especially restaurants, and then they have the audacity to even fine these poor bastards, So I let it rip. I told the guy he's a piece of shit. It was all in Hungarian. That what they're doing is just unreasonable. They're trying to find. People have had a lockdown for the last over a year. People just come out and get a bit of fresh air as a group. They can't even enjoy themselves. You start finding businesses have closed. And I said, "You're nothing but a piece of shit, and you should be embarrassed at what you're doing." And then the crowd applauded me that was sitting down on tables. And then the guitarist guy at the end said, "Look, thanks, but I'll look after this." Anyway, so I just lost it. I'll tell you what, I just can't handle the shit that's going on in the world, and people letting it get away with it. I actually looked around at the group. I said, "Look, you guys should get up and revolt against this as well. Not let these scum get away with what they're doing." Honestly, it's become such a police state, not just here, everywhere around the world, So, and they're all fooling us, these bastards, every single one of them. And the trouble is, another big observation I'm doing is, people that are waking up, they're falling into another trap of this controlled opposition. There's so much controlled opposition, and growing and understanding the history of Europe, especially my parents grew up in a communist country and I studied the history of how communism works. And you have to you got to really nut out the politics too. And when you start getting into looking at the history plus the religion of what my immediate family went through before they went out to Australia. So currently I can see they have like Alex Jones. He's controlled by, he's kind of mixed half-truths into a lot of his information. He's controlled from Israel. They sponsor him. Then you got David Icke, I used to read way back. I got a few of his books, even when I was in Australia, that he had books on the shelf. That was going back to early 200, and 2001, 2, something like that, I remember. So he's been around a long time. And again, he's an ex-journalist. Anybody who's an ex-journalist and goes into this opposition side, you have to see the alarm bells. Be careful, because most of the time people from journalism will play the other side, controlled opposition. And he was an ex-journalist, David Icke, and he's spreading so much screwed. He's got no history. He's got no historical education. He's not a historian. He has never studied philosophy or theology, and he just becomes an overnight success, writing. He jumped out of behind a bush and starts writing about everything, and it turns out he is an occultist. He's into if you go right into his teachings, he's into the reincarnation, occultism, the Kabbalah, everything like that. So the longer you study him, the sooner you realise these guys are all controlled opposition. Same with Jordan Peterson. He's another guy, a lot of guys, he's been getting around the last few years, trying to defend the men in society. Again, he's a Gnostic, and he's even studies Carl Jung, Gustav Carl Jung. And Gustav Carl Jung, he teaches it in psychiatry, he's a psychiatrist. And that's, again, a dangerous occultic teaching. And he even believes in some Catholic mystic during the, I think it's the 14th, 13th, 14th century. I remember looking at him a few years ago, Jordan Peterson. And again, this actual Catholic mystic was, at the end, heretic, because they discovered he was dabbling in the occult. Because Christianity also has this Gnostic occult angle. And that's another interesting part about during the Spanish Inquisition. A lot of they call them the Marrano Jews of Portugal and Spain. How they supposedly changed to Christianity, Catholicism, but they still studied Judaism and the occult behind the scenes, and are masquerading as Catholics. And they went gone underground. They're the ones who really screwed up Catholicism, because they infiltrated our church. And a lot of them even escaped persecution. They actually came to Hungary, and they even changed their names to the most Hungarian names of all. Like one of them changed, the first name was Attila. He changed it to Attila the Hun. And he turned out to be one of the most, at the end everybody was chasing him, because he became a crook, he was ripping off people, infiltrated church. So you have to be very careful with this controlled opposition. Trump and Biden, again, democracy is not like democracy. Eventually, democracy is with Trump and Biden and America and globally is controlled opposition again, and both parties are controlled. They have the bankers and corporations monopolise the whole world now, and Freemasonry, from the French Revolution on, slowly brought capitalism and socialism into the scene. A lot of people, they don't know that both sides are materialistic, and they breed all the vices on the world, and they remove God eventually, because everybody starts worshipping money, entertainment, lust, gluttony, pride, you name it, the whole list is there. But a lot of people just don't understand what virtue of vice is anymore. So Trump and Biden, if you barrack for either side, you're going to be led down a endless rabbit hole of Freemasonry. Even what's that play? That play, Alice in Wonderland. That's a Freemasonry fairy tale or a story. Just check it out. They're the ones who made that story up. And the whole thing is even has illicit drugs in there. When they're at the tea party and all through the movie, or the film or the story. So yeah, you've got to be careful. A lot of literature from the 19th century on and arts have all been contaminated to promote through the arts and music right up into today. Today is like so in your face that it's full of the occult symbolism and the eye, all-seeing eye everywhere, the pyramid, bondage, everything, you name it's in there. Porn, sex, drugs, and the butterfly, which is again represents the Freemasonry. So all this symbolism is everywhere, and a lot of people even have it on their skin as tattoos. Like I've been around Budapest today, just can't believe the amount of people that are so sucked into this cool arts, and they don't even realise a lot of that art, and it's so destructive. So, and then I noticed this, the people who are on the Trump bandwagon or in this QAnon group. Again, it's only there to keep your bums on seats. So many people are involved in this. They take him to court. They're getting this and that done. Nothing. Look how long it's been since the election. Nothing's happening. It's just to keep your bum on seats while they keep working behind the scenes to bring in the Telpiot program, smart cities of Israel. Israel's behind the whole lot. They don't care whether Biden and Trump is in there. They take they've taken everything, stolen everything from all the high-tech industries from the US, because they're masters of deception, infiltrating, and they take it all back to Israel. Microsoft, Facebook, Intel, all are controlled. All the platforms are controlled from Israel, and they want to introduce smart cities and this high-tech world where everybody gets pushed into cities, and everything from agricultural farming. Then they're even behind a lot of the new currencies, cryptocurrency, and that. A lot of people, all my friends are trying to even get into this cryptocurrency, and even that, it's very dangerous scene. Again, it's all controlled by the same guys, and they think they are well on the right side, but both sides are being manipulated by these Talmudists. So the whole social distancing, facial recognition, and the COVID injections are there to destroy your immune system. And then from then on, you're going to have to be dependent on getting vaccinations. It's all coming from pharmaceutical companies. Doctors are nothing but pharmaceutical prostitutes. Even they already start recruiting kids from university level by when you go in as a student from the foyer. They will stand up in the main foyer before they even go to classes, handing them out pamphlets and already starting to tap into their life back right in the beginning. They're destructive, these pharmaceutical companies. They don't give a flying fuck about your health. They just want to sell drugs. All about drugs, and it's screwing up your immune system instead of promoting good old traditional. And even the foods, they're all going high tech. They're designing these big glasshouse manufacturing robotic AI systems where they're going to be producing your fruit and vegetables from a little right from it's like a running chemicals through a little sponge, and you imagine again, it's all not natural. It's not natural produce, and there again, that's where you're getting poisoned from the fruits. And all you vegans out there, you think you're eating healthy stuff, but no, it's all artificial manufactured food, which is going to be destructive to the system. Old-fashioned farming with animal manure, microorganisms in the ground is what brings you good produce, healthy produce. It's good for your health system, not this robotic AI system which is coming up down the road. So both capitalism and socialism are controlled by the Freemasons and invented since the French Revolution. I think the civil code, I think I said in the previous was all invented after the French Revolution. That's when they brought in the written laws, and before they used to have historical constitution, customary laws. Anyway, for the Hungarian Kingdom, it was, and even the UK, until the systems there got destroyed by Cromwell, and the whole Freemasonry got into the whole system and globalism slowly started shining its light on our laws, and progressively they break it down, and now it's so obvious. But the trouble is, a lot of people don't know history. They don't know religion. They don't know history. And this is why they can get away with it. So you can nothing else but blame yourselves for what's happening now as well, because you're dumbed down to the point where you can't think anymore critically, and it's so sad. I speak to a lot of intellectual people who's got degrees coming out of their ass, and they still can't see what's going on around them, and they mix up basic terms like idealism. They don't even know what the word idealism is or realism. They live in this world of fantasy continuously. So yeah, it's a worrying scene. Like even back here during the times of when Hungarian Kingdom was very strong, we had the Fuggers, which controlled a lot of the Germanic banks, and then there are the Medicis, who were from Italy and southern Europe, and they were both battling to buy up all the kingdoms and get them to move into cities, and take over the kingdom by indebting them through wars, and eventually infiltrating their kingdoms as well with imposters, and taking over their whole kingdoms and breaking down their laws into what we have today through the different means of their little snaky the infiltration. Also, as I said, the Fuggers and the Medicis. A lot of people don't even know heard of the Fuggers. They're the most powerful bankers in Europe back at that time, and I'm surprised how uneducated people are about this. But we had the I think the Hodombula and the kingdom that would not even allow the Islamist or Jews to have control the banks. They asked the nobles to control the banks. And the thing is that our nobles and king got their nobility through pure virtue, and you wouldn't get it unless you did something for your country and fought with it with your own blood and heroism. So those people actually deserve to run their estates, or depends on how big a nobles they were. They got given certain amounts of land, and they weren't allowed to privatise the land either. It belonged to the crown, and it didn't even belong to the king. He only ruled. So private property was not allowed in Hungary, and that way you couldn't even put debt on property, so the bankers couldn't come in. That was the whole idea behind it, because they knew what bankers were up to from previous centuries and millennia, and Jesus even came to expose them in the New Testament. And our whole laws are all based on the New Testament and the Evangel, and we'll call it the evangelical laws. And they were just laws. So that means the whole kingdom was run, and laws were run through Christian eyes. So you didn't have the he didn't have the concern with like the gays being married, for example, because back then people knew man and woman were biologically designed by God. Then you also euthanasia, suicide was taboo, and because God gave us life and God takes our life, and not up to us individuals out of our selfish ego to kill ourselves. Like euthanasia now is being promoted, and it's world population and to reduce the population. No, we got even. I remember seeing a calculation by someone that the whole state of Alaska, the whole population of the world could fit into the state of Alaska and have so many acres to even be able to work the land, have crops. So we have enough land in the world to be able to populate properly. It's just the management of it in a godly way is what we need, not the capitalistic, destructive monopolization of greed and throwaway society that we have today. If you look back at the old way of how people, there's not this amount of garbage and destruction they have back then and pollution. They had rangers in the forest back then and you couldn't even throw an animal carcass into the river or creek because if the ranger caught you, there'd be high penalties for that, because they knew how important the water supply was, not just for the animals but for our own survival. So yeah, and there's so much disinformation about the kingdoms, and again they were spread by the good old Jacobsons or Jacobites, who were the guys behind the French Revolution, and they were Talmudists Jews again who did that, and a lot of people don't even look at them these days because of all this media crap that's ever since World War II and before have been spread about, and from Hollywood through literature, about the poor, those poor who suffered during World War II. What about everybody else that suffered under communism and killed? Everybody suffered under war, but they leverage into such a high level of to grow gains in not to even look in their direction, so they can get away with murder and justify it. It's just very, very disheartening to see what they've done, especially now that I've studied what their religion is about. And actually, it's not even religion. It's just basically, if you look at what they represent, the Maccabees, like Hanukkah. It's all about a revolution they had back in the Maccabee against the Romans. So again, it's all about war and fighting. There's no love in there. It's a very and as soon as the Christians always celebrate the light, the sun. Well, they always start their celebrations in the evening or the darkness, and it'd be worthwhile researching it, and then you'd understand what the differences are. That's why it's important to study religion, not just history. And secularism is destructive, again, very destructive, because it's moved God and Jesus and replaces the throne with Judas. And Judas has been in the background of every major scene. Even at the Last Supper, Judas was in the room. Even at the Garden of Eden, when Adam and Eve, Satan was there. So he's there to tempt. He's always there. That's why we have to be aware. Evil is always present, and you got to always shine a light on it and be on your toes. But if you don't understand what evil is, it's gonna control you. So yeah, Judas has replaced Jesus, especially in secular countries. So it's very disturbing. Like I remember even going back to Australia, I noticed so many young people into drugs, and they think that's the artistic way to open your mind and creativity and arts. DJs do it, artists do it, and it's just so destructive. You can't force heaven. You got to do it naturally through. God will only give you enough information that you can physically control through your thinking and mind, depending on what state your heart is and mind. But if you take drugs, you're going to become unstable. And you have all kind of issues with your mind. You're going to become unstable, nightmares. yeah, this is where a lot of people have psychiatric problems. And the longer they take drugs, the more and more they become unstable. But the trouble is, I notice, and they get narcissists, they become psychopaths. There's a lot of psychopaths I notice in Australia, sociopaths, and just disturbing. And masonry is very strong in Australia. Yoga and occults, big gay scene there. And everybody's anti-white Christian. And they don't realise, if you really study the Aboriginal history, they didn't have any social justice or human rights. They used to, some of the things they used to do, their own mother used to feed one child to the other. Or if one tribe beat the other, they'd eat them. And they eat the parts of the other, like cannibalism. But no, we're not allowed to talk about that. Well, white man brought them civilization and Christianity. And a lot of times, Aboriginals used to try and get protection in white communities back then because they tried to save their own lives. So they went, and it's all documented by a lot of pioneers and settlers, the first settlers. And even in universities, if you look for it, it's there. But now they've just got away with it. It's just absolute nuts. Really, it just does my head in how people can not see a balanced, objective history anymore. And they always blame in the whites or the Christians. It's just absolutely nuts. Yeah, I can't believe. Bring back the good old white Australia policy, I swear. That would sort out a lot of issues. And the trouble is, I also see the anti-masculine and the feminism that's going in Australia. It's disturbing. And the breakup of families, all about the self-love, self-worship. It's very destructive. And that's, again, you'll understand that if you study Christianity and properly, and you learn what virtue and vice is. Then, yeah, and before used to be first priority was God, then your country or kingdom, then your family, and you will last. Not these days, it's you and then you shit on everything else. It's just a very, 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 very dark world. But then I also see a problem in Hungary with our Prime Minister. He's playing the Christian card, but he's serving the New World Order. So again, they want to set up the conservative side and the socialist side, like in a lot of the Western countries, like Canada, Australia, UK. It's like a soft communism. And in the West, it's that's what I mean. In the West and here, we got the Christian. They dress up as Christians, and then they think they can get away with everything by putting through their policies of serving New World Order laws, bringing them into Hungary, and getting away with it. So both sides are controlled by the New World Order, and they tell you this. As soon as Orban Viktor get in, he goes, mention the New World Order straight away. The New World Order, we're going down the IT, high-tech industry, AI, robotics, and it's everything they want to do. They want to do the smart cities, get people into the high-tech industry. That way, AI is going to take over. AI is very dangerous. It's going to stop people from being in control, and computers will be controlling everything eventually. Already, you're going to be so dumbed down, they're not going to even need you anymore. So you're going to just be. Eventually, the AI system's going to go, look at this useless piece of shit. We'll penalise and put you out on the street. And another interesting thing, I remember going to lectures here in Budapest with this guy from Venezuela, who's a theologian, and he travelled the world studying the ghettos of Brazil, Central America, and even Europe. And he was collecting information on how the police were piloting in these third world countries how to control ghettos, and they were actually going around and promoting them in other Western countries to get them ready for, if people start revolting or uprising against their government, how we can have ghettos parts of the city where they can lock everyone in, and it'll be like total like a mafia control the inside. Nobody can get out, and then everybody kind of has to survive on a the strongest survive kind of attitude. It was really disturbing. He was a really interesting lecture, how he had collected this information, and after the Brazilian police force were travelling to America, Europe through France, Italy, UK, and already given them examples of how to set up these ghetto parts. And right next door, like in Brazil, you'd have the ghetto, a couple of blocks that way, the rich people just living, and then the whole area would be patrolled by policemen and army. And then nobody can get out, but if you go against the government, they throw you in there. So, and then you got to survive. It's something like Escape from New York. It was a movie with Kurt Russell. I think, or one of those guys. Can't remember. I think it was it. It's just madness, and it's all around the corner, guys. So yeah, both of them promote. That's what I mean. You've got to be careful with who do you believe. Just because they're Christian and they're pushing this COVID. The COVID thing is, again, there to destroy your immune system. And then you've got to be dependent on the pharmaceutical companies from then on. I'll eat my fucking garlic. I'll eat my chilies, fruit and vegetables, seasonal foods, and that's it. I don't need some government telling me, or pharmaceutical company or corporation, or even the bankers telling me, to get injected for something they designed, and blowing it right out of proportion with fearing us through the media, all those media prostitutes. Absolutely. So they should be rounded up and they should be disciplined, very, very disciplined. They're the psychos of our world. And the trouble is they've indoctrinated a lot of our young kids already, so to snap them out of it, I really don't know how. And even adults, a lot of them are just, it's crazy, yeah. So we have to get back to the old world, where equity, that's another thing, during the Reformation period too. Again, it's progressively, after the last few, several centuries, they brought this in as well. They even with a lot of Reformation, that's why you got to learn your religion, because they even tell you, faith alone, you're saved. That was a Luther. And we left out another part of the Latin Bible, saying that it's through faith and your deeds. So it means that you have to through your actions, you'll be judged. Not just because, hey, Jesus died on the cross, I can do whatever I want. It's the biggest load of shit ever. And again, it's Martin Luther and Calvin. Again, they were there, set up, paid by the bankers, the Fuggers and Medicis to infiltrate and change our Christian teachings. So be aware of that. So we have to get back to some equity, and through our deeds and virtue, then be noble and use our role models, like our kings and that. They were on the battlefield. They fought with their blood. They're the role models we need, and the martyrs of our world. The Christian arts and literature, and bring back the old customary historical laws, where they had like the Christian evangelical or God's laws as part of making up the state or the kingdom's laws. I'm saying Stephen Crown is the prime example, the model kingdom of Europe, and that, even King Marchash could have, in the 15th century, until the Medicis poisoned him, he could have been. He was the only last king standing against the Fuggers and the Medici bankers. And then later, after his death, the Habsburgs got in, and then slowly the whole breakdown of the kingdom, right up until World War II. But it took its time, because they could progressively broke it down right after World War II. But the same crown and the laws are just, we could even if we don't have a king, the crown is still above our country and we can still live by its laws. So we don't even need a king to run it, because the laws stand alone. And there's some good literature for people that they're thinking about. I found really helpful when I was reading about Christian thoughts on how they challenge. This guy called Bishop Sheen, he's got some really good books on all kinds of topics, whatever interests you. And it comes through like American eyes, so a lot of people in Australia and they probably could relate to that. There's some great books on even the how modernism affected the US psyche, and even back then, back in the 50s, I think it was the 60s after World War II. Even back then, way back then, you already saw the problems of Kant, of Freud, and Jung, and their teachings, how they had affected the American psyche and what area or what direction the country was headed in, and the whole education. He actually, one of his lectures, he said it's not even safe to send your kids to a Catholic school anymore. He's probably better off sending them to a state school, because he started seeing the church being infiltrated back then. And the Vatican II Council is very, very interesting part too. So, and we have this good guy, Balco András. He in Hungary. He won 3 gold medals in the pentathlon for Hungary from the 60s onwards, around the 60s. And he did this film called The Kuldetés. And it's so amazing. It's about him putting his whole heart into God and understanding how sport can be very materialistic, and the way he had to deal with the communists. Sport was his kind of escape into helping Hungarians kind of see how faithful he was, to try and give it across to the people. And he did a movie called Kuldetés. So if you're Hungarian, you can speak Hungarian, or understand it, go get it. It's on YouTube. You can get it. Balco András. He was he doesn't do any interviews unless they're live, because he wants to mention on these interviews how terrible the regime was, because they always end up cutting a lot of the sections out, and he's so pro honour, virtue, and he's got the biggest heart between all the Hungarians. So they're the kind of role models we have to follow, people like him. And then obviously anyone, and eventually you start recognising who's good, who's not, and you just pick, because no one's perfect, but you have to pick the good out of everyone. And at times certain people will have issues like maybe a bit of alcoholism or some family issues which they might struggle with too, but no one's perfect, so you got to kind of, because I know some lecturers and that which I think put on a too high a level, and they're only men as well, and this modern world has really screwed up a lot of people. It's not easy surviving, so you got to try, and it's tough to find good, but try and distinguish between occultic and Christian, for God's sake. The cult, even that, they'll lead you down a rotten path. So I don't know, you guys have to get into some good old-fashioned reading of virtuous books, not vice books. Get rid of the rock, the modern music is destructive, modern films, and just get back to the good old-fashioned order we had before this New World Order, and then you'll start making sense. Start making sense of what's happening around you, and they won't be able to control us. So anyway, I thought I'd just say a few words. I think I've been speaking for about 40 minutes or something like that. So please wake up and don't be a coward. Show some courage. Use your mind and heart. Don't let these people push you around, these governments. Don't be a gullible piece of shit. I'm just so sick of people not thinking anymore. And have some faith. Get back to your grassroots traditions before our parents. Get back to our grandparents. For some people, they probably have to get back to their great parents. And no Freemasonry. Anybody with Freemasonry, trash can. They're all Kabbalistic, cultic, Luciferians. So anyway, guys, I better zip it. I had my rant, but I thought I had to just keep my own sanity. But anyway, guys, God bless. Keep the faith, and I'll keep you up to date. See how things go. Bye-bye.